Big news. Your soulmate has been keeping a secret. And not a small one. Not the kind that fades quietly with time or loses its weight after a few weeks of distance. This is the kind of secret that changes everything between you the moment it is finally spoken out loud. Don't skip, because what you are about to hear is not gossip, not assumption, and not something that was ever meant to reach you this way. But it is reaching you today. And the reason it is reaching you today is because your soulmate has finally run out of time to keep it hidden. Stay with this, because the secret did not begin recently. It began in a moment your soulmate has never described to anyone. A private moment, quiet and completely unwitnessed, when they made a decision that altered the course of everything that followed between you. At the time, they believed they were making the right choice. They convinced themselves that what they were doing was necessary. That it was protective. That if you ever found out, you would eventually understand why they chose silence over honesty and distance over explanation. But weeks passed. Then more weeks. And understanding never arrived the way they had imagined it would. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you. What arrived instead was guilt. Slow at first. Manageable in the beginning, the way guilt always feels when a person still believes they made the correct decision. They pushed it aside during busy hours. They buried it beneath routine and responsibility and the comfortable noise of ordinary life. They answered every casual question about how things stood between you with the same carefully constructed version of the truth. The version that left out the most important detail entirely. And nobody noticed. That was the part that surprised them most. How easily the world accepted the surface version of their story. How rarely anyone looked beneath it. How simple it turned out to be to present one version of yourself while an entirely different version lived quietly underneath. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. But here is what the world did not see. Behind every normal conversation, behind every smile that appeared on time and every laugh that landed exactly where it was supposed to, your soulmate was carrying something that grew heavier with every single day that passed without confession. They would lie awake at night running through versions of how the truth might finally be told. Sometimes they imagined it going peacefully. Sometimes they imagined your reaction and felt their chest tighten so severely that sleep became impossible. They wrote it down once. The full truth, every detail, exactly as it had happened, in a message addressed to you that they never sent. They read it back, decided it was too raw, too exposing, too likely to be misunderstood without the right context surrounding it, and deleted every word before anyone could ever see it. Then they sat in the silence that followed and told themselves tomorrow would be a better day to find the courage. Tomorrow came. And went. And came again. Many times. Don't skip, because this is where the story begins to reveal itself. The secret your soulmate has been keeping is not about falling out of love. Let that land for a moment, because that is the assumption most people would make. That distance means diminishing feeling. That silence means replacement. That the space between two people who once felt undeniable toward each other must mean something important has disappeared. None of that is true in this case. What your soulmate has been hiding is something far more complicated and far more human than a change of heart. They have been hiding the full extent of how deeply this connection still lives inside them. They have been concealing the conversations they almost had with you. The messages drafted and deleted. The moments when your name appeared somewhere unexpected and their entire body responded before their mind could intervene. Stay with this, because the next detail is the one that changes everything. They made a decision early in your separation. A decision they believed was generous at the time. They decided that allowing you to move forward freely, without the weight of their feelings pressing against your choices, was the kindest thing they could offer. They told themselves that loving someone sometimes means releasing them from the obligation of your emotions. That if you were going to build something new, you deserved to do it without the shadow of their unfinished feelings following you into every room. It sounded noble inside their mind. It felt like sacrifice. Like the highest form of care they could offer someone they truly valued. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you. But here is what they did not anticipate. What they had framed as a gift to you became a prison for them. Every day they spent protecting you from the knowledge of their feelings was a day they spent alone inside those feelings with no outlet and no relief. The silence they had chosen as an act of love became the heaviest thing they had ever carried. And slowly, without fully realizing it was happening, that weight began to affect everything else in their life. Their energy changed. The people closest to them noticed, though they could not identify the cause. Your soulmate became quieter in gatherings where they had once been present. They stopped making long-term plans with the same enthusiasm they once carried. Not because the future frightened them, but because imagining it without resolution felt dishonest. Like building something on a foundation with a crack running through its center that everyone was politely agreeing not to mention. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. There were specific moments when the secret almost broke through on its own. Once, someone mentioned your name in a completely unrelated conversation. Just your name. Passing reference, no significance intended, the kind of mention that should have meant nothing. But your soulmate stopped mid-sentence. Their expression shifted in a way they could not immediately control. They recovered quickly, said something neutral, redirected the conversation. But for several minutes afterward their hands were unsteady and their thoughts were entirely somewhere else. Another time they passed a place that held a memory connected to you. They had not been prepared for it. There was no warning, no opportunity to brace themselves. They simply turned a corner and the memory arrived with a fullness and an immediacy that made the present moment temporarily disappear. They stood there longer than was probably noticeable, then kept moving, and spent the rest of that afternoon somewhere far quieter than the rest of the day had been. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you. These moments accumulated. Each one adding a small additional weight to something already becoming difficult to carry. And through all of it, the secret remained intact. Untold. Protected. Hidden beneath a surface performance that your soulmate had become increasingly skilled at maintaining. Until this changed. Stay with this, because what happened recently is the reason this is reaching you today. Something shifted in their understanding. Not dramatically. Not through a single enormous event that rearranged everything at once. It happened the way real changes usually happen, gradually, through a series of small moments that each moved something slightly further from where it had been, until one day the accumulated movement was impossible to ignore. They began to question the decision they had made. The one that had seemed so generous at the beginning. They started asking themselves whether what they had framed as protection was actually something else entirely. Whether the silence they had chosen out of love had at some point transformed into avoidance. Whether they had stopped protecting you and started protecting themselves without realizing the transition had occurred. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you. That question did not let go once it arrived. It followed them into mornings and into evenings and into the quiet spaces between tasks when the mind stops performing and simply exists. And the more honestly they sat with it, the more uncomfortable the answer became. They had been afraid. Not of your reaction specifically. Of something larger and harder to name. Of being fully seen. Of offering the complete truth about their inner life and discovering that even honesty was not enough to bridge what silence had created. Of trying and finding that some distances, once established, resist being closed regardless of what either person genuinely wants. That fear had disguised itself as consideration. And they had believed the disguise completely. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The moment of real reckoning arrived on a day that looked entirely ordinary from the outside. They were alone. The kind of alone that is not simply physical but internal, the particular stillness that arrives when distraction is no longer available and a person is left with only their own honest company. And in that stillness, without planning for it, they allowed themselves to fully feel everything they had been carefully managing for weeks. It was overwhelming in the way that truth always is when it has been compressed for too long. They felt the specific grief of missing someone who is still alive and still reachable. They felt the exhaustion of performance. They felt, beneath all of it, the persistent and unmistakable presence of a connection they had been trying to convince themselves was fading when in reality it had not moved at all. Don't skip, because this is the moment everything begins to shift. And then something unexpected occurred in the middle of all of that wait. Something that arrived quietly and without announcement. A clarity. Not the false clarity of a decision made in desperation. Real clarity. The kind that only becomes available after a person has stopped arguing with themselves and simply listened to what has been true all along. The secret they had been keeping was not protecting anyone anymore. If it ever had been. The silence they had chosen was no longer functioning as love. It had become a wall. And walls do not care about the intentions of the person who built them. They simply stand. And everything important remains on one side or the other, separated, unable to reach across. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate made a decision in that moment of clarity. Not loudly. Not with grand announcement or dramatic gesture. Quietly, the way the most important decisions are always made. They decided that the secret had been kept long enough. That you deserve the truth. Not a managed version of it. Not the carefully edited story designed to minimize discomfort and control your response. The full truth, offered honestly, without a predetermined script for how you should receive it. They thought about what that would require. The vulnerability of it. The exposure. Saying out loud something that had been private for so long that speaking it felt almost like a violation of their own internal world. But they also thought about you. About what you had been left to carry in the absence of explanation. About the questions you had probably asked yourself. About the versions of the story you had probably constructed to make sense of a silence that had never been fully explained. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you. You deserved better than the story you had been left to write alone. That thought settled into them and did not move. You deserved better. It was simple. It was undeniable. And it was the only thing they needed to understand in order to know what came next. They reached for their phone. This time without the usual hesitation that had stopped them every time before. This time without the internal negotiation about timing and readiness and whether the moment was right. The moment would never feel perfectly right. They understood that now. Waiting for perfect had already cost both of you more than enough. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. What they are preparing to tell you is not a rehearsed speech. It is not a performance of honesty designed to achieve a specific outcome. It is simply the truth, in whatever imperfect and vulnerable form it arrives, offered to you because you are the person who was always supposed to have it. The secret changes everything. Not because it reveals something terrible, but because it reveals something real. And real things, once spoken, cannot be unspoken. They exist between two people from that moment forward. They become part of the foundation of whatever comes next, whether that is something new or something healed or simply a shared understanding that was long overdue. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate is no longer willing to let fear write this story. They have watched fear write enough of it already. They have seen what silence builds when it is allowed to continue past the point of usefulness. And they have made their decision. The secret is coming. The truth is coming. And whatever you feel when it finally reaches you, know this. It is being offered without conditions. Without expectation of a particular response. Without any demand except that you hear it from them directly, in their own words, at last. Because some things were always meant to be said out loud. And this is one of them. Stay till the end. Because your soulmate is finally ready. And somewhere, beneath everything you have been carrying quietly inside yourself, perhaps you have been ready too. Something huge was waiting for you. Now you know what it was.